Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ham Nation, January 6th, 2021. I am Josh Nass, amateur radio call sign KI6NAZ. Welcome to Ham Nation. Thanks so much for following us over here at the Ham Radio Crash Course YouTube channel, Twitch, Facebook, wherever you're watching us. We're going to throw it right over to the hosts. We're going to talk about the show for today. Thanks again. We appreciate it. And Happy New Year. Hey, everybody. How's it going tonight?
Hey there. Hey there.
Going good. Going good.
So we've got Don. How you doing, Don?
We're still learning how to ride this bike, folks. It's we all know how to ride the bicycle, but we're on a completely new model. And you know how it is when you get in a new car or something, you have to relearn how to drive. That's where we are tonight.
Well,
Okay,
kind of like you hand the HT over, but you're not familiar with that HT, and
Right,
they need you
exactly.
to program it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Okay, we got it. So we confirmed
You
got
got
it.
it.
So my fault.
deal.
It wouldn't be even Ham Nation on Ham Radio Crash Course. It wouldn't be without a problem like that. So we got to knock those out right in the beginning. I appreciate that.
It's still live television after all.
That's right. So Randy, how you doing? Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for doing the show. It's I know you've been putting in a lot of work on this, and we all really appreciate it. So you've been figuring out the video production tools. You've had, 5 or 6 dry runs over the last, month or so. So I think you got it all tuned up now. So it's looking good.
Hopefully we kicked the tires enough, so it should be rolling at least a little bit down the road. Amanda, how you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Happy New Year's, everybody. So glad to be back for the beginning of the year here. And hello to the chat room. And I see so many of our viewers following us over. Again, I cannot relate your call signs to your names all the time. So if you have a question, just put at the end your call sign. That way I know how to pick it out. And I can just use your name. But please use your call signs. That way I understand who it is. Over to Gordo.
Yeah, and we'll be in the chat later too, right? We'll take
Oh, absolutely. I'll be taking your questions, and we're going to go over them at the end like we normally do. And just bring us some good ones here. I think take it easy on Josh, you guys. He's
Yes,
here for the first
please.
time. So
Please, thank you. Please and thank
Be
you.
gentle.
So Gordo, how you doing?
Gordo is fine. Wow, what a day. Well, tonight we're going to talk about mobile antennas. No. Not the mobile 5-inch coil antennas, but these little squeakers here called ham sticks. I can get it maneuvered here. That's what we're going to talk about, because we want to have more of our Ham Radio Crash Course listeners and viewers coming up on the air on HF. So back to you, Josh, and thanks for having us on board tonight.
Yeah, so I guess we're going to kick that off right with the Gordon West shots, right?
Oh, roger that. Well, let's jump into high-frequency mobile. And as we do, everybody thinks, oh, my gosh, you got to have that big, huge loading coil and 4-gauge wire going to the batteries and so on. We'll talk more about batteries later, getting wired up, but let's talk about an easy way to get on high frequency. And they start off with this very simple antenna, the individual band ham sticks. And the ham sticks run about $25 at most, and they are terrific performers because once they're tuned, they tell your radio that here's a perfect match, and bingo, you're going to have maximum voltage on the very tip end of that antenna, and current is going to be maximum way down at the base. So we need to think about the wire size that they wind these up with. And this is called a helical load. And no, it's not down at the base, but rather it's about halfway up the fiberglass mass, and it's covered with a outside covering to keep the moisture out. And you want to go for a ham stick type antenna that has the very largest wire possible, because that will reduce your DC resistance. And that's different than radiation resistance, which equals the voltage field over current within the antenna, or formula R is equal to E over I. Well, luckily they do all the winding for you. So when you're ready to buy one, be looking at that coil and see where it is placed on the antenna, and hopefully a good wire size. Now, the lower we go in frequency, the more coil we have to add in the center. So yep, you will see some variation on wire sizes. Two varieties of the ham stick type antennas are available. One is with a 3H24 thread, and that will screw right into a regular 3H24 receiver. Yet the other one from Diamond uses a PL259 type connector that would screw into a SO239. Well, however you have it, the very best place to mount it is on a good strong surface in one side or the other side of the vehicle. But hang on, if you plan to keep it always on the vehicle, you better be thinking about going into the garage, hopefully by taking it and unscrewing it. Or in the case of the Diamond antenna, we just loosen up this little nut and bingo, it comes all the way down to the roof level. The 3H24 or the SO239 mount is what we call a trunk lip mount for easy installation. Easy to the point that even in a rent-a-car, you can get HF going in just a matter of minutes. And it starts out with a very small RG174 coax, and that's so it can get into the trunk of your vehicle. And it won't squish it too much. And you can see this one got a little bit pinched, but still it's good to go. And then it terminates into the RG8X. The thing you want to watch out for is this little doodad in the center. This keeps the mount, once you close the lid, relatively stable. But if you aren't real careful, that little guy can get you into a big paint job that you'll need to do after slamming the trunk and finding out that you just gouged the paint. So watch out for that. And this whole entire mount, this one from Diamond, the K400, attaches with 4 stainless steel nuts on the inside. Now, it comes with a little tab. You don't want to use the tab. You want to actually dig into the inside of that trunk lid to make sure you have a good DC connection. And with a larger cable in the trunk area, if you're mounting it in the trunk, I like to always wrap it up, produce a little tiny coil there to keep the RF from going up and down the coax. The MFJ antenna analyzer, this was one of the first editions, didn't come with any metering other than this meter showing resonance, but it didn't come with a digital readout or anything like that. But you know that you've got it properly tuned in if you have your radio turned on, because you hear it go whoop, 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 whoop as you go through the tuning, and that's where you want to look and see what the SWR is. This SWR it's okay, but I'm surprised on a ham stick over a trunk, it should be just about flat. Now, the big coil that I showed you a little bit earlier, that's going to be a high Q antenna, and that means that you're going to have resonance only over 20 or 30 kilohertz on the 40-meter band. Whereas on the ham sticks, a slightly lower Q, your resonance will be over maybe 100 to 150 kilohertz. So something to think about as you're getting ready. And you actually tune the antenna by loosening up these, let's see, look like slotted screws, and moving the whip that comes with the antenna slightly up or down. But be cautious. If you push it down too far, you could break the single wire that is inside that fiberglass tube leading up to this portion, and now that antenna is cooked. So be cautious and adjust it for minimum SWR. And on the 75-meter band, on those ham sticks, you're going to find that you're going to need a hacksaw and hacksaw off probably anywhere from 12 to 18 inches, because it comes tuned to about 3,600, and most of the hams mobile like to operate around 38 or 3,900. So keep a hacksaw ready just in case. And pay attention to what kind of screws are holding that whip in place. Some of them, you tighten them up once and they boogie out and they're never the same. So get a good quality hamstick type of an antenna. And if you get to a point where you just can't seem to get it to go any higher in frequency, maybe you're on 5 megs and you plan to use it just outside of the 60-meter band on some of the NTIA channels that are available to those of us with a Coast Guard auxiliary, a real easy way to go to short out the antenna coils. And when you short a couple turns out, it's going to raise the resonant frequency. Is just take some plain old Reynolds wrap and just wrap it around 2 or 3 of those coils. They're not making contact, but capacitively, they will ensure that you gain maybe another 100 kilohertz up the band. Well, here's a nice antenna mount, and it's on the roof rack of a vehicle that just wouldn't tune with a ham stick on there. And the reason is the capacity between where it's mounted and where the ground plane actually is. Even though that may present a DC contact to the roof, you may find that the capacity that is developed, seeing the little tiny horizontal section versus all of the roof, the loading just will not occur as what you would hope. What you'd like is to have it flat on the deck with a ground plane directly below it. Now, on a larger vehicle, many times hinges provide a wonderful ground plane. That's what we did on our communications van. And yes, you want to make sure that you've got cabling that is going to ensure that when you open and close the doors, that indeed they still stay DC connected. And there you'll see one of the larger high-Q type antennas on the back of the van. But you know, when I'm rolling down the highway, I like to use the ham sticks because they're easy to change in a hurry. Here's another ham stick on a Jeep, and it proved very, very effective. It screws into an adapter, and these adapters, they're great. You plug in your PL259 from your coax on the bottom side, screw on the antenna on the top side, and bingo. Be sure, though, see that white little washer? Be sure that you don't lose that washer, because if you don't use it, you're going to short out the top part to the bottom, which would be ground. Yeah, that top part is made out of brass, and it's usually a male brass, so you need to use another adapter on top of that. But here's the deal. If you're tempted to use a big honking mobile antenna on that little brass connection, it is going to pull out and you've lost your antenna down the expressway. So watch out for that. They're fine for ham sticks or maybe a CB antenna, but don't be hanging on a big 5-inch coil, or else it's just going to rip that brass right out. And happy to say, you don't have to run the big LMR 400 or RG 213 or RG8. You can get by with RG8X, because down on high frequency, 10 meters and longer wavelengths, the little RG8X has minimal loss. Finally, we'll talk about this in a couple more weeks. You want to make sure that that feed point is at a good 50 ohms. And this is a nice little impedance matching transformer that is provided by MFJ and other sellers that does a great job. So again, don't think that you've got to run the big, huge Mama high-Q antenna to get started. This is like a $300 antenna. Rather start out with just a little tiny ham stick, and it's going to screw into the 3/8 24 thread that we see here, and you're going to be on the air on one band. So we hope everybody has a great week ahead, and hope you'll join us on high frequency. And in my HF, I've got an ICOM, and let's take a look and see what ICOM has to offer tonight.
Happy 2021 from ICOM. ICOM's IC705 gives hours of fun and enjoyment working your favorite bands. The IC705 is a perfect sidekick for hams that like to enjoy what both the great indoors and outdoors have to offer. It's the perfect QRP companion. Base station features and functionalities at the tips of your fingers in a portable package. covering HF 6 meters, 2 meters, and 70 centimeters. This compact rig weighs in at just over 2 pounds with RF direct sampling for most of the HF band and IF sampling for frequencies above 25 megahertz. 4.3-inch color touchscreen with live band scope and waterfall. 5 watts with the BP272 battery pack, or 10 watts with external 13.8 volt DC. Single sideband CW, AM, FM, as well as full D-Star functions. Micro USB connector, Bluetooth, and wireless LAN. Integrated GPS with antenna and GPS logger. Micro SD card slot. HM243 speaker microphone, and it supports QRP and QRPP operations. The perfect accessory for the IC705 is the now available optional LC192 backpack with a special compartment for your IC705 and room for accessories for soda activations or a day in the park. Other available accessories include the AL705 QRP portable magnetic antenna, BP272 standard battery pack, or BP307 lithium-ion battery pack, micro USB to micro USB cable, USB Type-C to micro USB cable, DC power cable, compact lapel PTT microphone with earphone, MBF705 desktop tray, and coming soon, the AH705 antenna tuner. Visit icomamerica.com/amateur for more information on all the great ICOM radios.
And thanks to ICOM there for sponsoring tonight. And Gordo, you had lots of good tips there on the ham stick. So I'm going to have a little video here played in a second to describe what I've been busy working here on the inside of the shack. So when we go to that, then we'll come back to and maybe talk a little bit more about it. So let's go to the videotape. Hello, Randy K7AGE. Time for a big project here. I'm going to rebuild my whole radio desk here. So it's a lot of work, stripping everything down and starting all over again. So I'll tell you a little bit about what I'll be doing. So I've decided I'm going to get rid of my rack here. That's just over to the right. In my previous station in Grass Valley, all I really used the rack for was to hold my amplifier and my antenna tuner, and then it collected a lot of other stuff just for storage. So I'm going to unload that and get it out of here. With the rack gone, I'm going to take this table here and shove it that way. And I have another table just like this one that's parallel to it right now. And I'm going to swing that around. It'll go from the corner behind me here out. So it'll be a corner desk. So one of the things I had to do here with the rack was, I was using it as a giant plug strip. I had all sorts of stuff plugged in there, including some things that run 24/7, such as my marinetraffic.com receiver that picks up the AIS traffic position and ship data from the ships out here in the Pacific Ocean off at Go Beach and sends it off to marinetraffic.com. I have a similar device for Flight Radar 24. It receives the ADS-B data from the airplanes and sends it off to flightradar24.com. And the other thing that runs all the time, I have a weather station which is connected into a Raspberry Pi, and that collects the data from my weather station and sends that out to Citizens data, I think Weather Underground, and also to APRS.FI. So they were all up here on the top shelf, so I had to shut those down, disconnect them, and I have them sitting over here on a box out of the way, all fired up and running again with all their power, antennas, and Ethernet connections. So what I'm about to start to do is remove the rest of this equipment. Everything's going to come off the desk here. And replacing all this is the big wood shelf that I built last June. It's been that long, and I need to get that up out of the basement. I need some help with that. It's kind of big. and we'll get that set in here. But first I gotta clean off everything here, clean off everything on the other table here, find a place to put everything for the time being, and get to work. Wow, that was a lot of work just getting all that stuff off the table. So here we are now, about a week later. In fact, it's December 31st, last day of the year, so Happy New Year. So I rearranged the tables. My neighbor helped me get the shelf up from the basement. I've placed a lot of the equipment in the areas. I really haven't done much wiring yet. In fact, the only thing that's running right now is I have an audio cable from the headphone out of my TS2000 going over to my computer, because I've been receiving the ISS SSTV pictures over the last week. So one more pass this morning. I need one more picture I'd like to get a better copy of. One of the things I talked about was my marine traffic and flight radar 24. So I've repackaged those into this old Lambda power supply frame that I've probably been holding on to for 25 years. So I had some pegboard left over from my workbench projects, and attached that to the bottom of the frame, and then I placed the equipment in there and just used cable ties to tie it all down. So I have done some wiring. I've hooked up the RF output path, basically from the K3 to the amplifier, through the watt meter, the LP100, through the antenna tuner, and the output of the antenna tuner then is wired into my 5-position Ameritron antenna switch, which I've mounted on the end of the workbench here. I've used this before out at the tower when I lived in Grass Valley, but here I have enough coaxes, I'm bringing everything into the shack, so I'm using this electronic switch. And eventually I'll have another switch I can select between which transceiver goes into all that path, so I could use my TS2000 or my older FT990, or feed it into my SX71 receiver I have sitting here. Another thing I'm doing during this whole process is that when I attach something up, I'm putting these little small cable ties on each end of the cable. So I have a color code like red for power, blue for coax, and a couple other things. Then I just randomly pick another one. I'm not writing them down or logging them, but when I'm looking behind something, I'll be able to see that and figure out where the other end is. And I bought a whole jug full of these things from Amazon. So yeah, I know some people don't like putting them on because it'll catch when you try and pull through. They can be sharp when you cut them off. My side cutters, I can cut them off pretty close, and so far it hasn't been a problem. And also on all my wall warts, I'm labeling the top of them, so yeah, there's so many of these darn things to know which one's which. And another thing, I bought a whole bunch of these Velcro cable tie things from Amazon, and the idea they wrap around. I'm trying to keep cables up off the floor as much as possible. I've mounted my plug strips underneath the bench up off the floor, and so some cable management, just kind of shorten things up a little bit, but leave enough so I can pull the equipment out. These guys who really build a special room and set it all up so they can have a room behind the desk to do all their wiring and stuff, that's really nice if you got the space. So while I'm making new cables, if I make them long enough, I have extra wire to put some ferrites on things. So I have this Polymer engineering package. It's 10 rings and 10 snap-ons, mixed 32 ferrites, with the idea that I can put these on a lot of the cables going into the radios and stuff. So these are the rings. They're 1.25 inches inside diameter. So you're not going to get many turns of a 1/2 inch coax. So the coax from the radio to the amplifier is RG58, smaller diameter, so I can put a lot of turns. Because the choking impedance increases by the square of the number of turns. So first turn is, say, impedance of 1x. 2 turns is 4x, 3 turns is 9x. So the more turns you can get through these things, the better. So I'm going to start off by putting them on the RF leads and the power supply leads going into the radio. And the same type of thing with these little clamp-on ones. These are good for like audio cables, control cables. It's a 1/2 inch diameter, so you can get maybe 3-4 turns through there, and then click it shut. So no association. And with Palomar, I've heard some of Bob's presentations. I forget, at a Hamfest or online, crazy year of Zoom. You can go to the Palomar Engineers website, and he's got his presentations there you can go through. No association with him, but time to think about a little choking here. A little choking in a ham shack. And while I've been handling the equipment, it's been loose. It's a good time to get everything a clean up with some dusting, a little 409, some paper towel, clean off the radios. I've taken pictures and written down the serial numbers for my inventory list. I'm capturing the data now. I'm not actually doing the sheets as I go along, but while it's out where I can read the serial numbers, I can put the little dots on the back. It's a good time to do that. So what's left to do? A whole bunch of stuff. A lot of wiring. I got a brand new i7 Dell desktop sitting over here in the boxes, so that's going to be hooked into two monitors here. So I have all that wiring to do. I got to hook up my mixer. I'm only going to use my mixer for the radio outputs going up to the JBL speakers. I'm not going to use it for microphone input to the radio. Fire up and test things. With a new computer, just all the software you have to deal with to get everything up and running again. So I think that's all for now. And when I get more of this running, I'll come back and show you what's going on. So thanks for watching. This is Randy K7AGE. If you like this, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button on the video there in the corner. And if you want to be notified when I post a new video, you can hit on that little bell icon on YouTube. So back to work. 73, Randy K7AGE. Okay, well, that's what I've been up to here for about a week or so here. Just busy putting everything in. I've got more of the equipment running. Right now I'm using 3 computers. I got to consolidate those into one. Got to do a lot of the RF wiring, a lot of control cable wiring, RS-232 for control. And as I start bringing things up and testing, if I start having problems, I'll open up that box of ferrites and start wrapping around serial lines or DC lines and things like that. So that's what I've been doing, and it's going to be nice, and looking forward to be able to spend time to operate this. So I think it's back over to Josh.
Randy, that's a beautiful shack. I love the Ferrari red and the clock you have above. It looks like a Back to the Future DeLorean. You're about to don't go 88 on that thing, or you're gonna see something. That's very nice. Also, the zip ties. That beautiful idea. That's wonderful. So thanks for sharing that. And make sure you go sub to Randy as well. It's K7AGE. What's your YouTube channel? I'll make sure it's in the description as well for everybody.
K7AGE. So just search there. In fact, when the show is done here, I'll take and release that video out on my YouTube channel tonight.
All right.
And I'd like to thank everybody too for all their tip jar contributions they've been making tonight. So thank you.
Yes. Well, we appreciate that. We also really like here at Ham Nation and the Ham Radio Crash Course is giveaways. So ICOM has a giveaway set up. They do bi-weekly drawings. The link is in the description. You can enter now, and that will be for ICOM swag as well as their monthly grand prize, which this month is going to be the ID51A. So make sure you hop down in the description and take the link, because you get access to swag prizes like t-shirts and hats. And again, it's at icomamerica.com/hamnation. So go check that out, and you'll find out how to get on that. The first week winners, we already have some. We have William Lugil, Len Stenkowitz, and Robert Pleby. I hope I pronounced that right. So thanks to ICOM, and make sure you go take the link and check that out. So we're going to go ahead and throw it over to Don for some Amateur Radio Newsline information.
We've got, thank you, Josh. Appreciate that. And yeah, by all means, if you're not subscribed to Randy's K7AGE channel, you really need to. And if you're not subscribed to this one, well, you really need to, because Ham Radio Crash Course and K7AGE are both just absolutely amazing. I've got a little channel, too. About half of it is, well, most of it is just videos that you're going to see coming up next, which is the weekly news with Amateur Radio Newsline. From Amateur Radio Newsline report number 2253, these are the Ham Nation headlines for Wednesday, January 6th, 2021. A small island in the Indian Ocean is poised to enter the world of amateur radio satellites in the new year.
Get ready for a history-making satellite to launch in February of 2021. Mauritius is preparing to send Mersat-1, the nation's first CubeSat, to the International Space Station. The nano-satellite will be carrying an amateur radio digipeater and a whole lot of national pride. It's the creation of a team of engineers from Mauritius working with a ham radio operator from the Mauritius Amateur Radio Society. The project was also a collaboration with AAC Clyde Space UK. MIR stands for Mauritius Infrared Satellite, MIR. According to the Mauritius Research and Innovation Council, the satellite will use the digipeater to enable experimental communication with other islands, both for emergency purposes and scientific research. The CubeSat will also collect land and ocean data. Management of ocean resources is a top priority of the government of the Republic of Mauritius. It is expected to be deployed in May or June from the Japanese experimental module on board the ISS. MIR-SAT-1 has an expected lifetime of between 2 and 3 years, and during that time, it's expected to make ground contact with Mauritius 4 to 5 times daily. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Graham Kemp, VK4BB.
In an action that many hams throughout the U.S. had been watching closely for months, the Federal Communications Commission is now requiring amateurs to pay a $35 application fee for new licenses, renewals, and vanity call signs.
The controversial move by the agency is a modification of its earlier proposed fee of $50. The FCC announced its decision on December 29th after reviewing nearly 4,000 public comments submitted. Commissioners said they determined that amateurs who previously paid no fees for their licenses were not considered exempt from such payments. In other action, U.S. hams are also being required to post their email addresses in the FCC's Universal Licensing System, or ULS, enabling the agency to email their licenses to them. Hams may either log into the ULS itself or apply for an administrative update through a volunteer examiner coordinator. This change is an important step for hams because the FCC plans to use email for all notifications to licensees.
Newsline anchor Paul Brown, WD9GCO, reporting. December YOTA month is over, and now the wait begins for the awards.
Youngsters on the Air closed out a very active December YOTA month by announcing some good news for hams and shortwave listeners who chase YOTA stations. YOTA is now providing awards for SWLs as well as transmitting hams. SWLs need to register on the YOTA event website, where they can log QSOs they heard on the air, qualifying them for awards at bronze, silver, gold, and platinum levels. SWLs are also able to use the website to request QSL cards after entering data about the QSO they heard. To receive these cards, listeners must have an SWL call sign and belong to a national society to use its QSL service. Meanwhile, as December YOTA month wrapped up its activity, organizers announced that award plaques were going to be presented in 7 categories. Most stations contacted in CW, most stations contacted in SSB, most stations contacted in digital, and most stations contacted. Awards will be given to Best Overall Score OM, Best Overall Score YL, and Best Overall Score Youngster for operators younger than 26. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Andy Morrison, K9AWM.
And that's all from the Amateur Radio Newsline, your independent source for amateur radio news for 4 decades and counting at arnewsline.org. With Graham Kemp, VK4BB, Paul Brown, WD9GCO, Andy Morrison, K9AWM, Karen Eve Murray, KD2GUT at the news desk in New York, and our news team across the globe. I'm Don Wellbanks, AE5DW. 7-3. We'll see you next time here on Ham Nation. Now here's the solar update from Dr. Tamitha Skov, WX6 SWW.
Welcome to the new year, everyone. Space weather this week is definitely beginning to calm down. We actually haven't had a lot of activity since the start of the new year, but we have had some fast solar wind that's been hitting us over the past day or two, and it's bumped us up to active levels over the course of the last 24 hours or so, and even brought aurora down to mid-latitudes for a short while. But that is from some fast wind that's beginning to kind of taper off. And by the end of the weekend, we should be back to completely quiet conditions. Meanwhile, we also don't look like we have any bright regions on the Earth-facing disk. Sadly, all those wonderful sunspots that we saw just a couple weeks ago have kind of disappeared. It's like the sun has gone back to sleep. So we're just going to have to be dealing with that for a while. The solar flux is back into the mid-70s, and it looks like that's going to continue probably for the rest of this week. Switching to our solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, we do have that fast solar wind that's hitting Earth right now from that small coronal hole that's rotating in through the Earth strike zone. We have been getting this fast wind over the last couple days, and it has brought some aurora down to mid-latitudes, but for the most part, the storm is beginning to wane. So at high latitudes, NOAA is expecting unsettled conditions, but we have up to about a 25% chance of a minor storm, and these conditions will continue in through the weekend before things begin to settle down. Now, at mid-latitudes, we're also expecting unsettled conditions, but we only have about a 20% chance of active conditions over the next 24 hours, and then things should drop off pretty quickly and go to pretty close to quiet conditions, and definitely by the time we get into the beginning of next week, things should be all quiet. Switching to our solar flare and particle radiation storm outlook over the coming week, everything is back to being in the green when it comes to big solar flares. We have a spotless sun right now, so that means there's no risk for radio blackouts on Earth's day side, and that should make you GPS users very happy. And sad to say, because we don't have any bright regions on the Earth-facing disk, the solar flux has dropped. We're back down into the mid-70s. At least it's not the 60s, right? Because at least we're still dealing with marginal radio propagation on Earth's day side, and it's likely going to continue like this easily over the next week. We do have a bright region that looks like it's rotating into view from the stereo's view on the sun's far side, but it's going to be about a week before that region actually becomes visible on the Earth-facing disk. So amateur radio operators and emergency responders, just hang in there for a little bit longer and we'll get through this slump, and hopefully the sun will wake up soon. Now also, because we are still coming out of solar minimum, the cosmic ray flux is a bit more intense than we'd like it to be, so you frequent flyers, and this does include air crew who fly over 800 hours annually and fly at high altitudes and high latitudes, you are in the moderate range for radiation dose, and this does include prenatal passengers, so please take this into consideration in your flight plans. For more details on this week's space weather, including when and where you can see aurora and how quickly this solar storm activity is going to die down, come check out my channel and see me at spaceweatherwoman.com.
Yep, great advice from Dr. T there. You definitely did check out spaceweatherwoman.com, and of course, follow her on Twitter. She's a great follow, at Tamitha Skov. And she has a YouTube channel as well, Tamitha Skov, so check that out. So good to start the year with a solar report from Dr. T. She's still on the team, and we could not be more pleased or proud to have her as part of what we do here. Amanda, I think it's time for you to bring us up to date on what's going on in the chat room.
Oh boy, I've got a ton of stuff here actually.
It's rolling, isn't it? It's rolling.
It is. It really is. It's really nice to see all of you guys again and gals. It's so nice. The first thing I wanted to do is a couple of announcements. There was a lot of chatter. Where's Bob? Where's Bob? Well, Bob is busy with all of you guys, actually. Almost, I think he said 5 days out of 7. He is constantly doing Zoom meetings, club meetings, tech fests, all of these virtual ham fests now. That's all he is doing all the time. So he said he is so sorry that he couldn't be here, and he does not have the time in the foreseeable future to join us because leading into my next announcement, I mean, he's going to be at a Tech Fest here in Colorado. The Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club is having a Tech Fest January 16th, and he's going to be one of the forums. So other forums on that is going to be Tim Duffy, yours truly. I'm going to have a fun the youth on the air. I'm bringing in Audrey. We're going to do a young female focus on her, and she's so brilliant, you guys. KM4BUN. If you haven't seen her, I know you've seen her on here as well as other places. So looking forward to that. And yes, of course, we all miss Bob, but he's really doing great things for the hobby. So I think that we should be thankful for that. All right. I did have a bunch of questions for Randy. Randy, a lot of people wanted to know, what was that shelf built out of? Baltic birch?
Oh, it's a real nice, cabinet grade plywood. I'm not a wood guy, just kind of hack around at this. But when we had the house built, my contractor has a guy that makes cabinets. So I did the layout. I figured out what I wanted, laid it out so it fit on one sheet of plywood, and he cut it all up for me. So then I assembled it, and I painted it, which was kind of a little bit of a controversial thing because it was a real nice grade of plywood, but I thought the red would make all the black equipment pop out. So it's looking neat.
It really looks fantastic, my friend. It really does. The other question was, this guy wanted to know, how are you bringing power into the room? That you couldn't possibly have had that many just standard outlets, things like that. What did you have to do to get all your plugs in a row? Not ducks in a row, plugs in a row.
Plugs in a row. Well, when you're building a house, you're going to spend probably a half a day with the electrician doing a walk around. So I said, in this room here, I wanted at least 3 circuits, I think, for 20 amps. There's a 220 volt, outlet there. And a lot of the circuits in the house are on a smaller panel, and that panel can be switched between the main panel for the house and also to a generator. So things like my outlets in my room here, the kitchen, I think one of the bathrooms, where the entertainment stuff is in the living room, the well pump, the septic pump, I can switch all those over to the generator. So if I was doing it again, I'd have them put in even more lines and breakers. So we'll see how we do. So right here in this corner, I have 2 20 amp services that I can use.
All right, so that brings up more questions for me. Did you upgrade to 200 amp service, and B, you got to tell us all about your home generator.
Okay, yeah, it's a 200 amp service. That's kind of, I think, standard in a lot of the new home construction. Mm-hmm. The generator is nothing special. It's about a 4 kW Honda. It's one of those with the handles and the wheels, and I used that in Grass Valley, and I could run my well pump because you lose power and you're on a well. It doesn't take long before the toilets stop working.
Oh.
I didn't realize you were on well. Okay.
Yeah, well, we're out here in the country. I'm 1 mile from the ocean and up 1,100 feet, about 5 miles south of Gold Beach. I can see on a clear day 35 miles up the coast to a lighthouse, and we have 5 acres here.
Wow.
Wow.
That's amazing. And I know how wells are here. We have to go about 300 feet down. So I'm just curious how far you had to go down before you.
We're down about 135 feet. They drilled the well just before we moved up here. So we actually came up and sat here in our lawn chairs for about 3 days and watched them do that.
I could not see that as entertaining, but okay, thank you. First, okay, so Josh yes. is here, and if any of our viewers have moved over and have never seen Josh, I bet they're wondering, Josh, what do you like in this hobby? What are some of your hot topics? What do you like to do in this hobby? Tell us about you. Come on.
Well, sure. Thanks, Amanda. I appreciate that. And thanks, everybody in the chat. I saw there's lots of really good questions in there. Man, I do pretty decent amount of stuff. I will say that 2020 changed significantly what I did a lot of. I used to like getting out more portable, doing summits on the air and all that fun stuff. And then 2020, I found myself, just from the logistics of having 2 kids at home, trying to give the wife time, I spent more time, kind of building up my own shack here. I've been playing around with JS8 call a lot more, doing more, simplex HF, and I've had a recent thing that it kind of goes in little spurts of how much interest I am in it, is SSTV. I forget how much I like just connecting a Raspberry Pi to my 7300, and I just leave it all day. And then I come back at the end of the day and I just go through all the images I've collected, which is a lot of fun. And I know, Randy, you mentioned the ISS event that was just recently. That's a lot of fun. And, technicians can get into that relatively easily with not much out of pocket. Raspberry Pi is generally all you need to make that work. And that's always really cool. So
I had my radio running for a week,
Yeah.
a week, getting all those pictures, just 24 hours a day. It was nice. I ran the SSTV stuff for a whole week instead of like 2 days or just over Russia, as I do sometimes. So yeah, just let it run, see what you get.
I've had a recent love affair with the TNC3, the Moby linked, and I've been doing a lot of just WinLink email just over VHF with the local node. That's just been a lot of fun. Just a fun little thing you can do, every once in a while. So yeah.
Well, thanks, Josh. Again, I think we didn't really say this at the beginning of the show. Thank you for bringing us to your home and letting us do this. So this is a lot of fun, and I think a lot of the feedback, if you haven't been able to follow chat, is that people are pretty impressed. So I like that. I like that a lot. And
you guys have been doing this for over 10 years now, and I just want to see it keep going. It's great information across the board and introduces people to new and interesting things, which is, as I say on my channel, is that ham radio is a lifelong hobby with many different off-ramps of interesting things that you can do, and you can generally do them all, right? And it's just kind of little tools that you put in your toolkit, and it keeps going with you along your journey as you have fun. It's just so many fun things you can do. So anything I can do to keep it going, I'm happy to support. So thank you all for your help, by the way.
Talking about the ham radio hobby, I have gone through, I can't tell you how many different interests and hobbies in the 36 years that my wife and I have been married, including scuba diving, which I've got my certification. I was working on my private pilot's license, and I lost my morning show gig, and airplanes fly on money. So flying, scuba diving, radio control cars, radio control airplanes, model rocketry. And back in 1994, when I told my wife that I wanted to get into ham radio, because we were I was reintroduced to it by her uncle, who had we had gone somewhere with her aunt and uncle, and he had a small handheld radio. And I said, "Wow, you got to bring your work radio, with you." He says, "That's not a work radio. That's ham radio handheld." And I'm like, "Wow, I was studying that stuff 20 years ago when I was 15 years old." And he's like, "Well, why don't you get your license?" And I said, "I think I will." So in '95, I got my ticket, and now here we are, 25 years later, 26 now, I guess. And my wife has said several times, when you said you were going to get into ham radio, I thought, well, this will be the hobby of the month club or whatever, and now here we are, 25 years later, a quarter of a century later. And she's like, I can't believe how much that this hobby has become part of all of our lives. She was studying for her ticket. My son got his ticket in 7 TMW. Being involved with Newsline and the Young Ham of the Year Award and all of that, and just the people that we all meet in and around just being in the hobby, and then not even to mention being part of something like Newsline and Ham Nation, where man, I can remember my first time going to Dayton right after joining Ham Nation. It was like I finally got the idea of what it was like to be a Bob Heil or a Gordon West. I mean, it's just the attention and the affection and everything else. And this is a hobby for life. This is way more than a hobby. I mean, this actually becomes part of the fabric of your life. And the people that you meet, you may never meet on the radio. You may never meet face to face. You may never talk to them on the phone. But, you know, if you share an occasional email with them or set up a sked or, you know, or have them as a regular contact and catch them on the radio all the time, or maybe see them at a ham fest, you'll take that to your grave. And it's the most amazing hobby in the world. So for those of you who are watching, who maybe are not yet ham radio operators, and in fact, you know, I think I've seen several in the chat who are saying that this makes me want to, you know, get my license. I've seen that over the last 10 years in Ham Nation. That can't tell you how many emails we've gotten. It says, hey, you know, you guys are the reason I got my ticket. Yep. and come up at Hamfest and, you know, shake your hand and throw an arm around your shoulder. And, you know, you're the reason I'm in this hobby, and it's gratifying. So I think I can speak for the room here to all of you out there watching. Thank you so much for making us a part of your lives and being part of what just the great hobby that amateur radio is. It's the most amazing thing on the planet.
It absolutely is. And speaking of getting into the hobby, and it was such a great entrance, and you thought it might have just been a short time thing, let's just go ahead and talk about it. Let's talk about the FCC $35 fee.
Yeah.
Would it have been that much of a passion? Would you have just jumped into it not knowing if you're going to continue with it if you had that $35 fee? I was talking to Jeff. I was saying, I did this on a dare. You told me I wouldn't be able to pass. Now, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have wasted the $35 to get into amateur radio that away. So yeah. I think that we would have missed out on some fantastic people being in ham radio had this fee been there the whole time. So, you know, what do you think, Don?
Wouldn't have stopped me. I mean, when you look at some of the other things that I've been into, you know, radio controlled airplanes and cars, that's about as expensive as getting into amateur radio. Let's not even talk about scuba diving and the equipment and the lessons there. And let's not even bring up private pilot training. So a $35 license fee for $10, you prorate that out, $3.50 a year. Yeah, I can swing that. I got no problem with that whatsoever.
All right. Well, Gordo, what do you think?
I think it's a reasonable fee if we factor in all that the FCC helps us manage our own amateur radio service. Yeah. And the real question is, how is that fee going to be collected at the testing level? And we're going to have to find that out and what the volunteer examiners plan to do. I'll try and have Larry from the W5YI VEC come on board and give us an explanation next month. And a quick question for Josh. Josh, can you give us a 1 minute, what's your day job?
Oh, not a ton. I'm a software engineering manager. So I have a proper day job, and people work for me, and it's in software development. That's
okay.
About what I'll say.
Okay.
I will comment on the $35. I think for most people, it's probably not going to affect them. But if you think about people starting out, youth, people on fixed incomes, people that haven't had the hook fully set, if you will, into why they might want to dive deeper, I think we might lose people from that. And they're probably not people that are already engaged in the hobby. They're people that are coming to it new. Like Amanda's example. I took a bet, right? And the bet was, you know, what, I bet you can't get it. Well, you pay the $35. That's a meal now, right, for a couple of people. I think that if you're already engaged with it, it's probably an easier sell. But if we don't have the active Elmering or the active person helping the person to show them why it's valuable, interesting, and to get passionate about it, it could be harder. So I think there might be some people that get left out. For most, though, I assume it's not that big of a deal.
Agreed. Randy, your 2 cents, maybe I'll give you 10 cents worth.
10 cents. Well, yeah, it's probably just the initial step for the people who are maybe testing the water. So it's going to be, you know, $15 for the test fee and $35. So it's going to be, you know, $50 just to basically sit down to take the test that first time. But over the lifetime of your license, it's a cup of coffee a year. So
yeah,
it's the step function's a little we'll have to see how that works out. And Gordo's going to be able to fill us in on that because he's on the front line.
Absolutely. And I have to tell you, I threw probably more of a fit renewing my driver's license and having to pay $38. I was really mad about that.
Yeah. And my concealed carry permit. Yeah.
How is that so expensive? That's like, okay, another time, another place. Okay, the other question that was kind of a follow-up to that, if any of you have knowledge on this, when does the $35 fee start?
There is not a date set at this point, is my understanding. So there will, I believe it has to go to Congress to get ratified, but I believe that it's also a byproduct of a law that was in the 80s or something that was put into place by Congress to go to a unified licensing approach for not just the FCC, but multiple branches of the government. So it's got to go back to them. And then, as Gordo referenced, how are they going to roll it out with the logistics? There's a whole bunch of decisions that have to be done there. If that's something that the VEs handle at the testing site, that's a whole new thing that they're going to push down on them potentially, right? So there's still some questions that need answering. And so because of that, anybody watching, if you don't have your general or extra and you're thinking about upgrading, or you're not licensed yet, you know, the Gordon West books, I heard, are less than $35 right now on Amazon. So just think of it that way. You're saving money in the long run. You can go get a book, get your license, be done with it for 10 years, and you're good to go, right?
There you go. Absolutely.
I mean, again, not to hammer, but, you know, we really encourage people to be ARRL members, too. So you got that $40 a year as well. It adds up, but I think it's worth it. And I hope everyone else finds value in it. And guess what? It's our job to sell it. So we have to make sure that you find the value in it, and we're going to help you do that.
And now when you join the ARRL, you get all 4 magazines, you know, online. So it's QST, Contest Journal, QEX, the Real Technical, and the new On Air, which is, you know, wonderful for the new hams. So, even if you're not a contester, take a look at that, Contest Journal, because there's a lot of good articles about, assembling your station. And these are the guys that are really perfecting stuff. So you can always learn something from these other publications.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
And I'm sorry, chat. You guys have been going so fast. I've been trying to keep up, but I'm talking at the same time. So
we passed the 1,000 milestone. That's a little trophy that flies by when you're doing the chat. So thank you, everybody in the chat. I did see one question, Amanda, if I could ask it.
Yeah.
The question was ham sticks for the IC705. Absolutely, right, Gordo?
Yep, IC705 would love a ham stick, because a ham stick is almost unity gain on 10, 15, and 20 meters. It may be a dB down, maybe 2 dB downs from what would be for a portable type of a loop run on the 705. So, yep, but remember the ham sticks, and I know you know this, Josh, require a good ground plane. So with the 705, you still may want to consider a loop affair or something of that nature, unless you're set up next to seawater. And we did that several years ago, and we had the loudest signal on the band using saltwater as our ground plane.
Mm-hmm.
So, Gordo, how do you feel about mounting the antenna right on the side of the radio versus a few feet away?
I would be a little worried. On the 705, on a metal table, that would work great. Not sure I'd put it right on the 705 itself, but certainly within 5 or 10 feet, because you do have to unscrew one and screw on the other when you go to different bands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's that MFJ octopus antenna. I had a lot of fun playing around with that guy. That's like 4 dipoles. So that just is a multi-band dipole at that point. You just switch to the, whatever band from the 705 and you're good to go.
Yep. Good point. And we'll be covering more about antennas in a couple of weeks.
Well, Gordo, talking about a couple of weeks, you're going to be gone for a couple of weeks, right? Because you might have a shindig you're going to.
Yeah, that's Quartz Fest down in Arizona. Arizona, with its very high rate of the virus. It's disturbing some of those plans, but I'll be back in a couple of weeks, guaranteed, and we'll be talking more about mobile HF antennas. Maybe the big guys, but the big guys really require, as you can see, a pretty hefty mount to accommodate them.
Very good. Well, thanks, everybody. Thank you, chat room, this evening. I'm going to go over our nets tonight. I did see that we're going to have a 75-meter net around 38.15. Steve, if I missed that, correct me if I was wrong. And check out Kevin on around 71.92. And we're going to be having our D-Star net on 14 Charlie as usual. So thank you, Paul, for taking that over, and we appreciate it. So check out those nets. With that, we're gonna wrap it up and let Josh go pass out for the night.
Well, kinda. I did promise the chat that we'll do a Discord after chat, which is something we do on my live stream. So if you haven't joined our Discord and you're interested in it, it's like IRC with a little bit of different flavor to it, but similar. We do an after chat over there sometimes after we do the live stream. So if anyone's interested, I will be hopping over there as well.
Perfect.
Before we get out of here, I got a text from Victor, our technical director over at TWIP, when we were over there, and he says we're looking great up here. So thanks, Victor.
Wow,
we got to work.
Thank
we got to
you,
work
Victor.
on getting you your license now, Vic. The gauntlet has been thrown down.
And thanks to Victor for the support. He answered some questions for me and helped me out.
He's a good guy.
Kind of
He's a great
porting
guy.
some
Yeah.
stuff over and helped us with the intro tonight. So thank you, Victor. Great
Thank
job.
you, Victor. We appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Vic.
Okay, well, I'll just leave it on this scene as we just kind of wrap up and say, I guess, 73 to everybody. We really appreciate you. We'll be back again in 2 weeks. So we're going to do once every 2 weeks, twice a month for the episodes here for Ham Nation. And, yeah, everybody in the room here on the show, obviously I couldn't have done this without you. You are the show. But all of your help and guidance and everything to build this up was greatly appreciated.
Now, brief programming note for the 20th, which will be our next show. That happens to be my son Tyler, N7 TMW's 21st birthday. So forgive me if I kind of skate over that direction a little bit. I won't be here the next show. We'll be celebrating Tyler's 21st birthday.
21?
Wow.
21.
Wow.
21.
You're not taking him to a casino?
I don't know. I'm hoping I have a job by then. I'm still looking. But, if I don't, obviously I'll have the time. He's got a job. I'll let him pay for the trip.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can't
we
believe
will
he's
have
going to be 21.
21.
Yeah,
Tyler will be 21.
Really?
that's a
Yeah,
big
I
milestone.
remember when he was a few months old when I got my extra. I had him at the VE session, my wife and I at the VE session when I upgraded to extra back in 2000. So, yeah, can't believe it. My boy is 21. So happy birthday, N7 TMW. Send him a
Happy
QSL.
birthday.
Send him a happy birthday QSL card, people. He's good on QRZ.
There you go. What was the call again, Don? Say it again.
November 7, Tyler Michael Wilbanks, TMW.
There you go. We
Hang
will
them
have a
like
video
this.
from Valerie in the next episode, so we'll
go.
have that as well. So we'll add to that. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much. I'll get 73 to all. Thanks for watching.
Good night, everybody. Appreciate you.